The morning alarm echoed through the metal halls of the Galactic Military Academy. Hyunwoo Kim rolled out of his narrow bunk and reached for his uniform. Around him, other cadets were already moving. The tall reptilian Vaxari hissed at each other in their native tongue. The crystal-like luminari hummed with soft light as they prepared for the day. Even the bug-like collective drones clicked their mandibles in perfect rhythm. But no one spoke to Hyunwoo. He pulled on his gray cadet uniform and checked his appearance in the small mirror. At 19 years old, he stood barely 5 feet 8 inches tall. His black hair was cut short according to academy rules. His brown eyes looked tired. 3 months at the academy had taught him that being human meant being invisible, at best, and a target at worst. The academy floated in space above the planet, Kepler 442b. Through his small window, Hyunwoo could see the blue and green world spinning below. It was supposed to be neutral ground where all species of the Galactic Empire trained together. The reality was very different. Hyunwoo grabbed his data pad and headed to the mess hall. The corridors were built for beings much larger than humans. Everything was too tall, too wide, too cold. His footsteps echoed quietly while the heavier footfalls of alien cadets thundered around him. In the mess hall, he took his portion of synthetic protein and found an empty table in the corner. This was his routine. Eat alone, study alone, train alone. The other human cadets had learned the same lesson. There were only 12 humans among 300 cadets, and they had learned to stay apart to avoid attention. Well, look what crawled out of its hole. Hyunwoo looked up to see Commander Thekval standing over him. The Vaxari was 7 feet tall with green-black scales and yellow eyes that seemed to glow. His forked tongue flicked out to taste the air. As a senior cadet, he wore the red stripe that marked him as a squad leader. "Commander," Hyunwoo said quietly, setting down his spoon. "I was reviewing yesterday's tactical simulation scores," Thekval said. His voice was a deep hiss. "Imagine my surprise when I saw a human name at the top of the analysis rankings." Other cadets began to gather around. Hyunwoo felt his heart rate increase but kept his face calm. This was not going to end well. "There must be some mistake," said Vexkol, another Vaxari. "Humans do not possess the mental capacity for advanced tactical thinking." "That is what I thought too," Thekval said. He leaned closer to Hyunwoo. "Tell me, little human, did you cheat somehow? Did you hack into the computer system with your primitive technology?" "No, sir," Hyunwoo replied. "I completed the simulation according to the rules." "According to the rules," Thekval repeated mockingly. "How noble. How very human." The other cadets laughed. "But you see, there is a problem. Your high score makes my species look bad. It suggests that a weak, emotional, short-lived human could be smarter than a Vaxari warrior." Hyunwoo said nothing. He had learned that defending himself only made things worse. "I think this calls for a practical demonstration," Thekval continued. "Today's combat exercise will be perfect. We will see how your theoretical knowledge serves you in actual battle." The Vaxari commander turned and walked away, followed by his group of alien supporters. Hyunwoo finished his meal in silence. He could feel other cadets staring at him, but none approached. Even the other humans kept their distance. 2 hours later, Hyunwoo stood in the Academy's combat training facility. The room was enormous, filled with movable walls, obstacles, and holographic projectors that could create any environment. Today it was configured as an urban warfare scenario with narrow streets, tall buildings, and plenty of places to hide. "Today we practice small unit tactics," announced Instructor Zekmore, a massive collective drone with 4 arms and compound eyes. "Each squad will navigate the maze, locate 3 targets, and extract to the designated safe zone. You will face automated defense systems. Failure to reach the safe zone within 30 minutes results in academic penalty." The cadets were divided into squads of 5. Hyunwoo found himself assigned to Squad 7 under Commander Thekval's leadership. The other members were all aliens. 2 more Vaxari, 1 Luminari, and a collective drone. "Listen carefully," Thekval said as they prepared to enter the maze. "This is a complex operation requiring coordination and trust. Unfortunately, we have been burdened with dead weight." He looked directly at Hyunwoo. "You will take rearguard position and try not to get in our way." The exercise began. Squad 7 moved through the maze with practiced efficiency. The Vaxari took point positions, their natural armor protecting them from the training weapons fired by automated turrets. The Luminary used her light-based abilities to blind sensors. The collective drone's multiple arms allowed it to operate several pieces of equipment at once. Hyunwoo followed behind, carrying basic supplies and watching the rear. His tactical mind analyzed their approach, noting several inefficiencies in their formation and route selection. But he knew better than to offer suggestions. They located the first target without difficulty. The second target required more careful coordination, but Squad 7's superior alien abilities made it manageable. Hyunwoo began to think they might actually complete the exercise successfully. Then Thekval made his move. "Change of plans," the Vaxari announced as they approached the third target zone. "Intelligence indicates enemy reinforcements approaching from behind. Someone needs to delay them while the primary squad completes the mission." "Sir, the sensors show no enemy movement in our rear," the collective drone reported. "Sensors can be deceived," Thekval replied smoothly. "Cadet Kim, you will establish a defensive position at the last checkpoint. Hold that position until we complete the mission and return for extraction." Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. The last checkpoint was 3 zones back, surrounded by active defense turrets and with no escape routes. It was a death trap, even in a training simulation. The automated weapons were set to cause pain without permanent injury. But facing them alone would be agony. "Sir, Academy regulations require minimum 2-person teams for defensive positions," Hyunwoo said carefully. "Are you questioning my orders, Cadet?" Thekval's eyes glowed brighter. "No, sir." "Good. Move out." As Squad 7 continued toward the third target, Hyunwoo retraced their path through the maze. His mind raced, analyzing the situation. This was not really about the training exercise. This was about putting him in his place, showing everyone that humans belonged at the bottom of the hierarchy. He reached the checkpoint and surveyed the area. 3 narrow corridors led to a central chamber surrounded by elevated positions perfect for automated turrets. The designers had made it intentionally difficult. A full squad might fight their way through with careful planning and mutual support. A single cadet would be overwhelmed in minutes. Above him, he could see the observation deck where instructors watched and evaluated performance. Other squads had already completed their missions. Soon everyone would be watching Squad 7's final phase. They would see the human cadet fail spectacularly while his alien teammates succeeded. Hyunwoo checked his equipment. Standard training armor, a basic energy rifle, 2 flash grenades, and a portable shield generator good for maybe 60 seconds of protection against 3 automated defense turrets and multiple sensor mines. It should have been hopeless. Should have been. But as the turrets activated and their targeting lasers began sweeping the chamber, something changed in Hyunwoo's mind. The fear disappeared. The anger at being abandoned faded away. What remained was pure, cold calculation. His grandfather had told him stories about humans in impossible situations. Stories about what his people could do when they stopped trying to fit in and started trying to survive. The turrets locked onto his position and opened fire. Hyunwoo smiled. Time to show them what a human could really do. The first energy blast missed Hyunwoo by inches as he dove behind a concrete barrier. The automated turret tracked his movement, its red targeting laser sweeping back and forth like an angry eye. 2 more turrets activated from different positions, creating a crossfire pattern that should have pinned him down completely. In the observation deck above, instructors leaned forward to watch. This was supposed to be educational, a demonstration of why humans needed alien protection and guidance. The small human would panic, make mistakes, and require rescue by his superior alien squad mates. Instead, they watched something extraordinary. Hyunwoo did not panic. He studied the turret patterns for exactly 12 seconds, timing their rotation cycles and identifying their blind spots. Then he moved. Rolling from cover, he sprinted toward the nearest turret in a zigzag pattern that seemed random, but perfectly avoided the automated targeting system. The turret spun to track him but could not keep up with his unpredictable movement. As he reached the base of the mounting, Hyunwoo pulled one of his flash grenades, but he did not throw it at the turret. Instead, he bounced it off 3 different walls at precise angles. The grenade exploded behind the second turret, just as its sensors attempted to lock onto his previous position. Blinded by the flash, the second turret began firing wildly. Hyunwoo had counted on this. He grabbed the first turret's mounting arm and swung it around just as the blinded second turret fired. The energy blast struck the first turret, destroying it in a shower of sparks. Now there were only 2. The third turret had a clear shot at him, but Hyunwoo was already moving again. He sprinted directly toward it, using the destroyed first turret as a shield. The energy blast meant to stop him instead struck the wreckage he pushed in front of himself. When he reached the third turret, he did not try to destroy it. Instead, he accessed its manual override panel. His fingers flew across the controls, reprogramming its targeting parameters. Within seconds, the third turret turned and began firing at the second turret. The automated weapons destroyed each other in a brief but spectacular light show. Silence fell over the training chamber. In the observation deck, Instructor Zekmore's compound eyes widened. Other instructors muttered among themselves in their alien languages. The human cadet stood alone among the smoking ruins of 3 automated defense systems, breathing hard but victorious. Time elapsed, announced the computer system. 11 minutes, 47 seconds. New individual record established. Hyun-woo looked up at the observation deck and gave a small wave. 20 minutes later, he sat in the Academy Medical Center while a luminary medic examined him for injuries. He had minor burns on his hands from handling the hot turret controls and a few bruises from his acrobatic movements. Nothing serious. You were lucky, the medic said in her musical voice. Those turrets were set to training mode, but they could still have caused serious harm. Yes, Hyun-woo agreed. Very lucky. But luck had nothing to do with it, and they both knew it. The medical center door opened and a young woman entered. She was human, with short black hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Hyun-woo recognized her as Jinna Park, an engineering student from the Academy's technical division. "Excuse me," she said to the medic. "I need to speak with Cadet Kim privately." The luminary medic flickered with annoyance but left them alone. Jinna pulled up a chair and sat down close to Hyun-woo. "That was either very brave or very stupid," she said quietly. "Probably stupid," Hyun-woo admitted. "No, you do not understand." Jinna looked around to make sure they were not being overheard. "What you just did, it will have consequences. The instructors are talking. Word is spreading through the academy." "Is that bad?" Jinna was quiet for a moment. "There have been other humans who showed exceptional ability. Cadet Dong-hyun Lee last year. He scored perfect marks in zero-gravity combat simulation. A week later, he was transferred to a supply depot on the Outer Rim. Administrative error, they said. And Cadet Mi-young Cho 2 years ago. She developed a new algorithm for fleet navigation that was 30% more efficient than existing systems. She disappeared entirely. The official record says she requested discharge due to family emergency. Hyun-woo felt a chill that had nothing to do with the medical center's air conditioning. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that the Galactic Empire tolerates humans, but only as long as we stay in our assigned place. We can be competent but not exceptional, useful but not irreplaceable. The moment we show that we might be better than them at something important, we become a problem." Before Hyun-woo could respond, the medical center's communication system activated. "Cadet Kim, report to Admiral Kesvar's office immediately." Jinna grabbed his arm. "Be careful. Whatever he offers you, whatever he threatens, remember that they need humans just weak enough to be controlled, but just strong enough to be useful." The walk to the Admiral's office took Hyun-woo through the Academy's most prestigious sections. Here the corridors were wider, the lighting warmer, and everything spoke of power and authority. Portraits of famous alien military leaders lined the walls. There were no human faces among them. Admiral Kesvar's office was enormous, with a curved window that offered a spectacular view of space. The Vexari Admiral sat behind a desk made from a single piece of polished black stone. His scales were darker than Thekval's, and his yellow eyes seemed to see everything. "Cadet Kim," the Admiral said without looking up from his datapad. "Sit down." Hyun-woo took the chair in front of the desk. It was sized for beings much larger than humans, making him feel small and insignificant. He suspected this was intentional. "Your performance today was quite remarkable," Admiral Kesvar continued. 11 minutes and 47 seconds. The previous record was 23 minutes, set by a full Vaxari squad. "Thank you, sir. I was not giving you a compliment." The Admiral finally looked up. "I was stating a problem." The office fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support systems. Outside the window, stars wheeled slowly past as the Academy continued its orbit. "You see, Cadet Kim, the Galactic Empire is built on order. Every species has its place, its role, its limitations. Humans are valued members of our great civilization precisely because we understand what you can and cannot do. Today you have created confusion about those limitations. My instructors are asking uncomfortable questions. Other species are beginning to wonder if their assumptions about human capabilities are correct. Admiral Kesvar stood and walked to the window. This kind of confusion can be dangerous. It leads to instability. Instability leads to conflict. And conflict leads to casualties. I apologize if my actions caused any problems, sir. Oh, you will apologize, the Admiral said. But not with words. He turned back to face Hyunwoo. Your final examination has been moved up. Tomorrow you will undertake a solo mission to investigate a derelict vessel in the Void Sector. It is a region known for sensor interference, solar radiation, and navigational hazards. Very dangerous for a single cadet. Sir, Academy regulations require minimum 2-person crews for void operations. Exceptional circumstances require exceptional measures. The Admiral's smile showed rows of sharp teeth. Consider it an opportunity to prove that today's performance was not a fluke. Hyunwoo felt his blood run cold. The Void Sector was where ships went to disappear. No communication, no backup, no rescue if something went wrong. It was essentially a death sentence disguised as a mission. Of course, if you feel the assignment is beyond your capabilities, you could always request transfer to a safer position. Supply management, perhaps, or food services. The message was clear. Submit to your proper place or die trying to prove you belong somewhere else. Hyunwoo stood up. When do I leave, sir? Admiral Kesvar's smile widened. 800 hours. Try not to disappoint me, Cadet. As Hyunwoo walked back through the corridors, past the portraits of alien heroes and the reminders of human insignificance, he thought about Jinnah's words. They needed humans just weak enough to be controlled. But what happened when they misjudged exactly how weak that was? Tomorrow the Admiral was going to find out. The scout ship Pathfinder was small even by human standards. Hyunwoo ran his hands over the controls, checking every system twice. The ship was old but well-maintained, with basic life support, minimal weapons, and engines that would get him to the Void Sector but might not get him back. Final systems check complete, he reported to the Academy's Flight Control Center, requesting permission to depart. Permission granted, Cadet Kim, came the reply. Your mission parameters are loaded into your navigation system. Investigate the derelict vessel designated as Target Epsilon 7. Report your findings upon return. If you return, Hyunwoo thought but did not say. The Pathfinder undocked from the Academy and accelerated toward the edge of the system. Behind him, the lights of the Academy grew smaller until they disappeared among the stars. Ahead lay the Void Sector, a region of space where broken ships drifted like tombstones and sensor interference made navigation a nightmare. As he flew deeper into the void, Hyunwoo reviewed what little information he had been given. Target Epsilon 7 was identified as a derelict of unknown origin, approximately 800 meters long, showing no signs of active power or life support. The ship had been drifting in the void for an estimated 40 to 50 years. That timeline made Hyunwoo uncomfortable. 40 to 50 years ago was when humans had first been invited to join the Galactic Empire. The official history said it had been a peaceful integration, a meeting of minds between species ready to work together for mutual benefit. But Hyunwoo's grandfather had told different stories. 3 hours into his flight, the Pathfinder's sensors began to malfunction. The interference in the Void Sector was worse than expected, turning his instruments into sources of random noise rather than useful information. He was flying nearly blind, following the basic navigation beacon toward the derelict's last known position. When he finally found it, Hyunwoo understood why this region was called a ship graveyard. The derelict was massive, a dark metal mountain drifting through space. Its hull was pitted and scarred by decades of micrometeorite impacts and radiation exposure. But the damage was not random. As Hyunwoo flew closer, he could see patterns in the destruction. Weapon marks, battle damage. This ship had died fighting. Pathfinder to Academy Control, he transmitted, knowing the message would probably not get through the interference. Target located. Beginning boarding procedures. The ship had several docking ports, but only one showed signs of being recently used. Recent meaning within the last few decades. Hyunwoo maneuvered the Pathfinder into position and established a connection. The airlock cycled, and he stepped aboard the dead ship. Emergency lighting flickered in the corridors, powered by some backup system that had somehow survived all these years. The air was stale but breathable. As Hyunwoo explored the ship's layout, he began to recognize the design patterns. This was not an alien vessel, this was human. The discovery hit him like a physical blow. According to official records, humans had not possessed advanced spacefaring technology before joining the Empire. They had been a primitive species, barely capable of interplanetary travel, who had gladly accepted alien guidance and protection. But this ship was clearly human in origin, and just as clearly designed for war. Hyun-woo made his way toward what appeared to be the bridge, following signs written in Korean, English, and Mandarin. The corridors were filled with debris and showed signs of fierce fighting. Blast marks on the walls, emergency bulkheads sealed against decompression, makeshift barricades built from furniture and equipment. The bridge was a tomb. Dozens of human bodies sat at their stations, mummified by the cold vacuum of space. They wore uniforms Hyun-woo did not recognize, with patches and insignia that spoke of military organization and discipline. On the main view screen, a message was frozen in time. "This is Captain Soonja Lee of the Human Defense Force vessel Endless Night. We have been betrayed. The peace negotiations were a trap. Imperial forces are systematically destroying our fleet. To any humans who find this message, know that we did not surrender. We fought to the end. Remember us. Remember what they took from us." Hyun-woo stared at the message for a long time. The Human Defense Force. He had never heard of such an organization, but the evidence was all around him. Humans had not joined the Empire willingly. They had been conquered. A sound behind him made him turn. One of the bridge stations was powering up, its displays coming online after decades of darkness. An artificial intelligence hologram materialized above the console. "Scanning," the AI announced in English. "Human biosignature detected. Genetic markers indicate Korean ancestry. Welcome aboard the Endless Night. I am Oracle 7, ship's intelligence system." "You have been active all this time?" Hyun-woo asked. "Partially. I have maintained minimal functions and monitored for human presence. You are the first to board this vessel in 43 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Are there any other survivors? 1. Captain Lee remains in medical stasis in Section 7. Her condition is stable but critical. She has been waiting to speak with someone like you." Oracle 7 led Hyun-woo through corridors filled with the debris of battle to the ship's medical bay. In the center of the room, surrounded by quietly humming machinery, was a stasis pod. Through the transparent cover, he could see an elderly woman, her face peaceful but marked by old scars. "She was injured in the final battle," Oracle 7 explained. "Burns, radiation exposure, internal trauma. I placed her in stasis to preserve her life, but the damage is extensive. She has perhaps hours of consciousness remaining. Can you wake her? The process is irreversible. Once awakened, the stasis field cannot be re-established." "Are you certain?" Hyun-woo thought about his grandfather's stories, about the human cadet who had supposedly volunteered for this suicide mission, about the admiral who thought he was disposing of a problem. "Yes, wake her." The stasis pod hissed as it opened. Captain Soonja Lee's eyes fluttered open, and she turned to look at him. Despite her age and injuries, her gaze was sharp and alert. "Korean," she said with satisfaction. "Good. I always hoped it would be one of our people who found us first. Captain Lee, I am Cadet Hyun-woo Kim of the Galactic Military Academy." Her expression hardened. "You serve them. I thought I did. Until today." She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Oracle, show him the records. All of them." For the next hour, Hyun-woo watched 40 years of suppressed history unfold on the medical bay's displays. The real story of humanity's integration into the Galactic Empire, the systematic destruction of human military forces, the rewriting of history to make conquest look like invitation, the careful placement of humans in subordinate roles throughout the galaxy. "We were not primitive," Captain Lee said, her voice growing weaker. "We were different. Our technology, our tactics, our way of thinking about war and peace. That made us dangerous to their established order. So they destroyed us? They tried. But you cannot kill an idea, and you cannot destroy a people's will to be free. There are humans throughout the galaxy who remember the truth, who have been waiting for a sign that it is time to remember who we really are." Captain Lee reached into her uniform and pulled out a small device. "This is a quantum communicator, linked to human cells on dozens of worlds. For 40 years I have kept it silent, waiting for the right moment. Waiting for the right person." She pressed it into Hyun-woo's hands. "The moment you activate this device, there will be no going back. The Empire will know that someone has awakened the sleeping resistance. They will hunt you across the galaxy. Then why give it to me? Captain Lee smiled, and despite her injuries, her face lit up with fierce joy. Because you are exactly what we have been waiting for. A young human who has learned to fight in their schools with their weapons, using their own tactics against them. You are the bridge between what we were and what we can become. Outside the ship, alarms began to sound. Through the medical bay's small porthole, Hyunwoo could see lights approaching through the void. Imperial ships coming to make sure his mission ended the way Admiral Kesvar had planned. They followed you, Captain Lee said. Good. Let them think they have won. She pressed a control on the side of her bed, and displays throughout the ship began showing tactical information. Weapon systems that had been dormant for decades started to power up. The endless night might be a derelict, but it was not defenseless. Oracle, transfer all combat data to Cadet Kim's ship. Full tactical package, including everything we learned about Imperial weaknesses during the war. Transfer complete, the AI reported. Captain Lee gripped Hyunwoo's hand with surprising strength. Take the communicator. Take the knowledge. Take our story back to the galaxy. It is time for humans to remember who they really are. As the Imperial ships closed in and the endless night's ancient weapons prepared for one final battle, Captain Lee closed her eyes. Wake them up, boy, she whispered. Wake them all up. It is time to come home. The quantum communicator in Hyunwoo's hand began to pulse with a soft blue light. All across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds, other devices just like it started to wake up after 40 years of silence. The sleeping giant was stirring. The Imperial cruiser Dominion moved through the void sector with 3 escort ships, expecting to find debris and a dead cadet. Instead, they found the Pathfinder accelerating directly toward them at impossible speed. Sir, the human vessel is not responding to surrender commands, reported the Dominion's tactical officer. It appears to be on an attack vector. Admiral Kesvar stood on the bridge, his yellow eyes glowing with anticipation. A desperate final gesture. Target their engines. I want the cadet alive to face trial for stealing classified materials. But as the Imperial ships opened fire, something unexpected happened. The tiny scout ship moved like it knew exactly where each blast would be, weaving through the energy barrage with precision that should have been impossible for a single pilot. The Pathfinder's weapon systems, upgraded with 40-year-old combat data from the endless night, locked onto the lead escort ship. A single focused blast struck the vessel's primary reactor, exactly where the old files indicated Vaxari ships had a critical design flaw. The escort ship exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the entire void. Sector. Impossible, Admiral Kesvar hissed. How could a human know about that vulnerability? His answer came as the Pathfinder spun through space, using the explosion as cover to approach the second escort ship. Another precise shot, another explosion. Within minutes, 2 Imperial cruisers had been destroyed by a single human cadet in an outdated scout ship. The Dominion's crew watched in stunned silence as their remaining escort ship tried to flee. The Pathfinder pursued it like a predator, systematically destroying its engines, weapons, and communications before finally granting it the mercy of a quick death. Admiral, the communications officer reported, his voice shaking. We are receiving multiple distress signals from across the sector. Ships throughout the Empire are reporting incidents. Across the galaxy, the quantum communicator's signal was being received. On the industrial world of Kepler 186, factory supervisor Min-Ho Choi was overseeing the night shift when his wristwatch began to pulse with blue light. He had carried the device for 20 years without fully understanding what it was. A gift from his father, who had died in what the Empire called industrial accidents. But Min-Ho remembered as executions. Now the watch was singing with signals, and Min-Ho understood. He walked calmly to the factory's central control panel and began implementing protocols he had memorized as a child, but never expected to use. Within an hour, every factory on Kepler 186 producing Imperial military equipment had suffered critical system failures. Decades of carefully placed human workers began sabotaging production lines, introducing flaws into weapon systems, and corrupting manufacturing databases. The Empire's war machine began eating itself from within. On the agricultural world of Ross 128, farmer Yunji Kang felt the signal through the soil itself. Her family had tended these fields for 3 generations, growing food that fed Imperial military bases across the sector. The alien overseers thought they were observing simple agricultural work. They were wrong. Unji activated buried transmitters that had been disguised as irrigation equipment. Within minutes, human farming communities across a dozen worlds received new instructions. The crops they had been growing contained subtle genetic modifications, undetectable without specific testing. Food shipments to Imperial bases would now carry compounds that would not kill but would certainly weaken alien digestive systems. But the most significant awakening occurred on Earth itself. Dr. Shung-ho Nam stood in what the Empire believed was a primitive museum dedicated to pre-contact human culture. Tourists from across the galaxy came to see exhibits about humanity's supposedly peaceful integration into galactic civilization. They admired displays of primitive human technology and marveled at how far the species had come under alien guidance. None of them suspected that the museum's basement contained the command center for humanity's most carefully guarded secret. When the quantum signal reached Earth, Dr. Nam pressed his hand against a scanner hidden beneath his desk. Throughout the planet, similar signals activated. The historical preserves that covered 30% of Earth's surface began to change. Camouflage fields that had operated for 40 years finally deactivated. Underground hangar bays opened to reveal ships that made Imperial cruisers look like toys. The elderly museum docents, who guided tourist groups, shed their roles to reveal themselves as military officers who had spent decades planning for this moment. Earth was not the quaint historical site the Empire believed it to be. It was humanity's greatest fortress, hidden in plain sight. Captain Yujin Song emerged from the command bunker beneath Seoul, wearing a uniform that no alien had ever seen. Around her, a city that had pretended to be a cultural preserve revealed itself as a military headquarters that had been operating in secret for 4 decades. All stations, this is command, she broadcast on frequencies that officially did not exist. Operation Homecoming is now active. Repeat, Operation Homecoming is now active. Across human space, the response was immediate. On mining stations, human workers suddenly revealed themselves as trained saboteurs. In Imperial shipyards, human technicians who had spent years building alien warships began implementing subtle modifications that would cause critical failures at precisely the wrong moments. More importantly, the human fleet that had been hidden in the outer system began to move. Admiral Kesvar watched his tactical displays in growing horror as reports flooded in from across the Empire. Human uprisings on 17 worlds, industrial sabotage in 32 systems, and now energy signatures appearing throughout the Sol system that matched no known human technology. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the human cadet." On the main screen, Hyunwoo Kim appeared. He was no longer wearing his academy uniform. Instead, he wore the simple clothing of a human resistance fighter, with the quantum communicator visible on his chest. "Admiral Kesvar," he said calmly, "I want to thank you for your lesson in galactic politics. You taught me that the Empire respects only strength, so I have decided to show you what human strength really looks like." Behind him, through the Pathfinder's viewports, the massive bulk of the endless night was visible. The ancient warship was powering up, its weapons charging for the first time in 40 years. "You made one critical error in your calculations, Admiral. You assumed that because humans seemed weak, we actually were weak. You assumed that because we appeared to accept your version of history, we had forgotten our own." The Endless Night's main batteries opened fire. Energy beams that had been designed to fight the Empire's best warships reached across space to strike the Dominion. The Admiral's flagship, built to intimidate lesser species, crumpled like paper under the assault of human technology that had been perfected through 4 decades of hidden preparation. As his ship died around him, Admiral Kesvar heard Hyunwoo's final words. "You wanted to know if my performance at the Academy was a fluke. Here is your answer. Every human you dismissed as weak, every human you relegated to menial work, every human you thought you had broken has been waiting for this moment. We remember everything, we forgive nothing, and we are coming home." The transmission ended as the Dominion's hull finally collapsed. In the silence that followed, emergency beacons throughout the Void sector began broadcasting a single message. The human resistance had returned. After 40 years of hiding, they were ready to reclaim their place in the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, Imperial commanders looked at their human workers with new suspicion and growing fear. They had built their empire on the assumption that humans were a conquered species, grateful for the protection and guidance of their betters. Now they were beginning to understand the difference between submission and patience. The sleeping giant was not just stirring. It was standing up, and it was very, very angry. The Imperial Council of Species convened an emergency session aboard the massive station Nexus Prime. Representatives from 14 alien races sat in their species-specific chambers, all trying to comprehend how their carefully ordered galaxy had suddenly descended into chaos. The human uprising has spread to 47 systems in just 6 days, reported High Commander Tekvan of the Vaxari military. Our response fleets are encountering unprecedented resistance. Unprecedented? Screeched Ambassador Ziknal of the Collective. Our forces in the Tau Ceti system were completely destroyed by what appeared to be a single human cruiser. A single ship eliminated an entire battle group. Elder Crystal Vextor of the Luminari pulsed with agitated light. The humans have technology we did not know they possessed. Our intelligence estimates were clearly incorrect. What they did not understand was that 40 years of careful preparation had led to this moment. Every human who had seemed to integrate peacefully into Imperial society had been gathering information, learning weaknesses, and waiting for the signal to act. The Empire's response followed predictable patterns. Overwhelming force applied to crush resistance quickly and brutally. They had used these tactics successfully against dozens of species over the centuries, but humans were different. The first Imperial extermination fleet arrived at the mining colony on Kepler 442c expecting to find panicked civilians and poorly armed rebels. Instead, they found a trap. What had appeared to be a simple mining operation was revealed as an elaborate military base. The miners were trained soldiers who had spent years preparing the colony's asteroid field as a killing ground. Ships that looked like civilian transports dropped their camouflage to reveal heavy weapons and military-grade shields. Commander Yujin Song coordinated the defense from her flagship, the Indomitable Spirit. The ship itself was a masterpiece of deception, built inside the hull of what appeared to be an old cargo hauler, but containing technology that made Imperial dreadnoughts look primitive. All units, this is command, she broadcast on the human tactical frequency. Execute pattern Wolverine. The human ships did not try to match the Imperial fleet in firepower or size. Instead, they used speed, cunning, and perfect knowledge of their enemy's weaknesses. Ships darted through the asteroid field, using the rocks as cover while targeting the precise locations where Imperial vessels were most vulnerable. The Vaxari heavy cruiser dominance found itself under attack from 3 directions simultaneously. Human fighters, no larger than shuttlecraft, struck its reactor coupling with surgical precision. The massive warship died in seconds, its crew never understanding how such tiny attackers had penetrated their defenses. But the real shock came when the humans began using captured Imperial equipment against its makers. Years of maintenance work and technical support had given human engineers complete knowledge of alien technology. They knew exactly how to turn Imperial weapons into Imperial nightmares. The collective hive ship Convergence watched in horror as its own drones turned against it. Human cyber warfare specialists had infiltrated the ship's control systems, reprogramming the automated units to attack their creators. The ship destroyed itself in a frenzy of mechanical fratricide. Within 4 hours, the entire Imperial fleet was either destroyed or fleeing in panic. Human casualties were minimal. Imperial casualties were total. News of the victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the agricultural world of Ross 128, Imperial troops landed expecting to crush a simple farming rebellion. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. Yunji Kang had spent 20 years studying Imperial military doctrine while pretending to be a simple farmer. She knew how they would deploy, how they would advance, and exactly where they would be most vulnerable. The humans did not meet the Imperial forces in open battle. Instead, they melted into the countryside, using their perfect knowledge of the terrain to strike and disappear. Imperial soldiers found themselves fighting shadows, facing enemies who struck from unexpected directions and vanished before retaliation was possible. More disturbing was how the humans seemed to anticipate every Imperial tactic. Communications were jammed at precisely the right moments. Supply lines were cut exactly when they would cause maximum disruption. It was as if the humans had been studying Imperial warfare for decades, which, of course, they had. The breaking point came when Imperial reinforcements arrived to find their landing zones had been turned into killing fields. The humans had not just prepared defenses, they had prepared the perfect counters to specific Imperial units. Vaxari shock troops found themselves facing weapons designed specifically to penetrate their natural armor. Luminari energy-based attacks were neutralized by shields that seemed custom-built to counter their frequencies. The Imperial commander, General Heckman, sent a desperate transmission back to Nexus Prime before his position was overrun. The humans are not fighting like rebels or insurgents. They are fighting like they have been preparing for this exact war for 40 years. They know us better than we know ourselves. His transmission ended abruptly as human forces stormed his command post. But the most shocking development occurred in the Sol system itself. The Imperial Second Fleet, commanded by Admiral Zarketh, jumped into human space expecting to find Earth's token defenses and civilian population ready for slaughter. The attack was meant to break human morale by destroying their homeworld. Instead, they found a fortress, sir, Admiral Zarketh's tactical officer reported. I am reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. These are not civilian installations. As if responding to his words, the asteroid belt began to move. What had appeared to be natural rocks revealed themselves as camouflaged battle stations. The research stations orbiting Jupiter opened fire with weapons that made Imperial dreadnought guns look like toys. And from the outer system, a fleet emerged that dwarfed anything the Empire had ever seen. The human ships were not just larger than Imperial vessels. They were fundamentally different. Built for war rather than intimidation, designed by engineers who had studied every weakness in alien technology for 40 years. Their hulls absorbed energy weapons that should have destroyed them. Their shields turned aside projectiles that should have penetrated any defense. Admiral Zarketh watched his fleet die with the growing realization that everything the Empire believed about human capabilities had been carefully orchestrated lies. All ships, retreat immediately, he ordered. Send word to the Council. Earth is not a target. It is a trap, but it was too late for retreat. The human fleet moved to surround the Imperial forces with precision that spoke of decades of planning. Ships that had pretended to be exploration vessels revealed themselves as hunters designed to kill Imperial dreadnoughts. Hyun-Woo Kim, now wearing the uniform of a human naval officer, stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit and watched the enemy fleet realize its doom. Admiral Zarketh, he transmitted to the Imperial flagship. This is Captain Kim of the Human Defense Force. You are surrounded and outgunned. I am prepared to accept your surrender. Never, came the reply. The Empire does not surrender to inferior species. Inferior? Hyun-Woo smiled, and there was nothing pleasant in the expression. You have been beaten by the species you thought was weakest. Your fleets are burning across 17 systems. Your allies are abandoning you, and your homeworlds are about to learn what it feels like to be conquered. The transmission cut to static as human weapons tore the Imperial flagship apart. In the aftermath, as the debris of the Second Fleet drifted through space, Earth's true nature was finally revealed. The museums and cultural sites that had attracted tourists for decades were shown to be elaborate facades hiding the most advanced military infrastructure in the galaxy. The elderly human tour guides who had spent years showing alien visitors around Earth's primitive historical sites stepped out of their roles. Grandmother Hee-Suk Yoon, who had pretended to be a simple museum curator for 20 years, now wore the uniform of a fleet admiral and commanded weapons that could crack planets. Broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies, she announced from Earth's primary command center. This is Admiral Yoon of the Human Defense Force. For 40 years you have visited our world as tourists, thinking you were seeing the remnants of a conquered people. You were wrong. Every site you visited was a military installation. Every human you met was a soldier. Every moment of weakness you thought you witnessed was carefully planned deception. You did not conquer humanity. You gave us 40 years to study you, to learn your weaknesses, and to prepare for this moment. The message was broadcast throughout Imperial space, carried by quantum relays that had been disguised as civilian communication networks. On 1,000 worlds, alien populations heard the words that would change their understanding of the galaxy forever. We know your technology because we built it for you. We know your tactics because we trained alongside you. We know your weaknesses because you trusted us to guard your secrets. That trust was your greatest mistake. Admiral Yoon's image was replaced by tactical displays showing the scope of human operations. Industrial worlds where production had been secretly modified. Military bases where human technicians had installed hidden. 6 months after the awakening, the Galactic Empire existed in name only. What had once been the most powerful military force in the galaxy now controlled fewer than half the systems it had ruled just a year before. The rest belonged to humanity, or had declared independence under human protection. Admiral Hyun-woo Kim stood on the observation deck of the Human Defense Force flagship Righteous Fury, watching the fleet that had gathered in the system once known as Alpha Centauri. 300 human warships hung in space like a constellation of vengeance, their hulls gleaming with the promise of battles yet to come. He was 20 years old now, though he felt much older. The frightened cadet who had been abandoned in the Academy's training maze was gone, replaced by a military commander who had helped orchestrate the greatest reversal of fortune in galactic history. Admiral, reported Captain Jinna Park, his former Academy friend who now served as his chief of staff. The Imperial delegation has arrived. They are requesting immediate negotiations. Let them wait, Hyun-woo replied. 40 years is a long time to wait for justice. They can spare a few more hours. The Imperial delegation was led by Elder Crystal Vextor of the Luminari, one of the few alien leaders who had shown any interest in genuine peace rather than continued domination. Her ship, the Harmony's Light, looked pitiful next to the human warships surrounding it, but Hyun-woo was not interested in pity. He was interested in results. When the negotiations finally began, they took place aboard the Righteous Fury in a conference room that had been deliberately designed to remind everyone present of human capabilities. The walls displayed images of Imperial fleets burning, alien worlds under human occupation, and the faces of human soldiers who had died fighting for their freedom decades before. Admiral Kim, Elder Vextor began, her crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. The Imperial Council is prepared to offer significant concessions in exchange for an end to hostilities. I am listening. Complete independence for all human-claimed systems. Recognition of human sovereignty. Reparations for past injustices. Establishment of formal diplomatic relations between our peoples. Hyun-woo studied the Luminary Elder for a long moment. Around the conference table, other human officers watched in silence. They had all paid the price for Imperial arrogance in different ways. Your offer assumes that we want to negotiate as equals, Hyun-woo said finally. It assumes that we see the current situation as a temporary conflict to be resolved through compromise. Is that not the case? No, it is not. Hyun-woo activated a holographic display that showed the current military situation across the galaxy. Human forces controlled or influenced nearly 60% of all inhabited systems. Imperial forces were retreating on every front. 6 months ago, you controlled this galaxy through superior firepower, and the assumption that other species would always be grateful for your protection. Now you are learning what happens when that assumption proves false. The humans have shown their point, Elder Vextor said. Surely now we can find a peaceful resolution. Peace. Captain Park spoke for the first time, her voice carrying an edge that made the alien delegates uncomfortable. Did you offer peace to the children who died when you destroyed our colonies? Did you offer peace to the families you separated when you scattered humans across the galaxy? That was a different time, protested Ambassador Colvan of the Collective. Those decisions were made by previous leaders. And now you will live with the consequences of those decisions, Hyun-woo replied. The question is not whether you will accept human independence. We have already taken it. The question is whether the remains of your empire will be allowed to continue existing. The silence that followed was deafening. You are talking about conquest, Elder Vextor whispered. We are talking about justice. Hyun-woo stood and walked to the conference room's massive window. Outside, human ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons trained on the Imperial delegation's escort vessels. For 40 years, we allowed you to believe you had won. We served in your fleets, worked in your factories, and smiled when you explained how grateful we should be for your guidance. Do you want to know what we were really doing during those 40 years? He turned back to face the delegates. We were learning. Learning your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. Learning which of your allies were truly loyal and which could be turned. learning exactly how to bring your empire to its knees with minimum effort and maximum effectiveness. Every human who seemed to accept your rule was actually an intelligence agent. Every human worker who appeared satisfied was actually a saboteur. Every human student who graduated from your academies was actually a weapon pointed at your heart. The Imperial delegates exchanged glances, understanding beginning to dawn on their faces. "You trained us," Captain Park added. "You gave us access to your best military schools, your most advanced technology, your strategic planning sessions. You thought you were creating loyal servants. You were actually creating the most dangerous enemy you could possibly face. An enemy that looks exactly like an ally until the moment it strikes." Elder Vextor's crystalline form dimmed. "What do you want from us?" "Complete withdrawal from all systems with human populations. Recognition of human territorial claims throughout the galaxy. Full reparations for 40 years of oppression, paid in technology, resources, and territory. And if we refuse," Hyunwoo smiled, and there was something in that expression that reminded the aliens why predators were called predators. "Then you will learn what total war actually means." As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding throughout the Imperial delegation's ships. Their sensors were detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. The human fleet was powering up weapons that dwarfed anything in the Imperial arsenal. "This is your lesson," Hyunwoo announced. "We could have destroyed your delegation the moment it arrived. We could have continued our expansion until every alien world flew human flags. We could have done to you exactly what you did to us. But we chose to offer you this chance for negotiation, not because we need your agreement, but because we want you to understand exactly what you are surrendering to." The conference room's displays activated, showing real-time images from across the galaxy. Imperial worlds under human occupation, their populations safe but subdued. Alien fleets surrendering rather than facing human forces. Former Imperial colonies celebrating their liberation under human protection. "You built your empire on the assumption that might makes right," Captain Park said. "You conquered species after species, believing that superior firepower would always ensure your dominance. Now you are learning what happens when someone with superior firepower decides that your time is over." Elder Vextor looked around the room at the human officers, seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time. These were not the grateful, submissive beings the Empire had believed humans to be. These were apex predators who had spent decades wearing the mask of domestication while sharpening their claws. "We accept your terms," she said quietly. "All of them. All of them." Hyunwoo nodded to Captain Park, who began preparing the formal surrender documents. As the Imperial delegates signed away their empire's future, he returned to the observation window. Outside, the human fleet began to disperse, heading for worlds that had been Imperial possessions that morning and would be human territories by evening. The expansion continued, peaceful but inevitable. "Admiral," Captain Park said when the aliens had left, "do you think they finally understand?" "They understand that they lost," Hyunwoo replied. "Whether they understand why they lost is another matter entirely." He activated his personal communicator, connecting to the quantum network that now linked human forces across the galaxy. "All commands. This is Admiral Kim. The Imperial Council has accepted our terms. Phase 1 of Operation Homecoming is complete. Begin Phase 2. Across the galaxy, human fleets began moving toward the remaining Imperial strongholds, not to destroy them but to surround them, to demonstrate that resistance was futile and surrender was the only option. The Wolverine had been cornered once, long ago, by an empire that thought it understood what predators looked like. That empire had learned, far too late, that the most dangerous predator is the one that does not look dangerous at all. Now the Wolverine controlled the forest, and everything in it lived by its rules. In his private quarters that night, Hyunwoo opened a small case that contained the quantum communicator Captain Lee had given him in the Void Sector. The device was quiet now, its work complete, but sometimes late at night he could still hear her voice echoing across the years. "Wake them up, boy. Wake them all up. It is time to come home." Mission accomplished, he thought. Welcome home. 2 years after the fall of the Galactic Empire, Admiral Hyunwoo Kim stood in what had once been the Imperial Council chambers on Nexus Prime. The massive station had been renamed Unity Station, and the chamber where alien species had once planned the oppression of lesser beings now hosted a very different kind of meeting. Representatives from 47 species sat in a circle. No throne elevated above the others. No species granted special authority. The humans had learned from the Empire's mistakes. True strength came not from dominance but from cooperation built on mutual respect and shared benefit. The quarterly reports show remarkable progress, announced Dr. Minjung Lee, the human administrator who had replaced the imperial bureaucracy with something far more efficient. 17 systems have achieved full economic independence. Trade between species has increased by 300%. Most importantly, we have had 0 military conflicts in the past 6 months. Around the chamber, alien representatives nodded their approval. These were not the same beings who had once sneered at human weakness. 2 years of human leadership had shown them what competent government actually looked like. Admiral Kim, said Ambassador Velkan of the reformed Vaksari government, our people would like to formally request human assistance in establishing our new defense fleet. We understand that this requires significant trust on your part. Hyunwoo studied the Vaksari diplomat. Velkan had been a minor official during the Empire, one of the few who had quietly objected to the worst excesses of imperial policy. Now he led a government that was trying to rebuild its species' reputation through honest cooperation, rather than military intimidation. Your request has been approved, Hyunwoo replied. Captain Song will work with your engineers to design vessels appropriate for system defense. However, I must remind you that all military technology comes with strict conditions. We understand. No weapons capable of planetary bombardment. No ships larger than heavy cruiser class. All designs subject to Human Defense Force inspection. And most importantly, any aggressive action against another species results in immediate suspension of all technological support and economic cooperation. Hyunwoo nodded. The new rules were simple and fair, but they were also non-negotiable. Humanity had learned from the Empire's mistakes, but they had also learned from their own history. Never again would any species be allowed to build the kind of overwhelming military advantage that could threaten galactic peace. After the council session ended, Hyunwoo walked through Unity Station's observation lounges. The station buzzed with activity as beings from dozens of species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old regime. Scientists shared research freely. Engineers collaborated on designs that benefited everyone. Children from different worlds played together in schools that taught cooperation rather than competition. Was everything the Empire had claimed to be but never was. Admiral, a familiar voice called behind him. He turned to see Captain Jinnah Park approaching. She wore the blue uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps, having chosen to focus on building peace rather than maintaining the military forces that had won it. The collective delegation has arrived, she reported. Queen Zexara wants to discuss the terraforming project for the Kepler 438 system. How is she adapting to individual thought? Jinnah smiled. Better than expected. Apparently, when you remove the oppressive group mind protocols the Empire forced on them, the collective are naturally curious and creative. Who would have thought? This was perhaps the most surprising development of the post-imperial period. Species that had seemed naturally aggressive or hierarchical had transformed dramatically once freed from the Empire's influence. The collective, once mindless drones serving alien masters, had rediscovered their individual identities. The Vaksari, no longer pressured to maintain military dominance, had revealed themselves to be skilled diplomats and engineers. Even the Luminari, who had always seemed aloof and superior, had become some of humanity's closest allies once they realized that humans respected their knowledge rather than simply demanding their obedience. There is something else, Jinnah continued. We received a message from the Outer Rim. One of our exploration teams found something interesting. She handed him a data pad containing a report from the survey ship New Horizon. The ship had been investigating systems beyond the old imperial borders, looking for new worlds suitable for colonization or contact with previously unknown species. What they had found was neither. Admiral, the report began. We have discovered the remains of what appears to be a massive military installation on the 4th planet of the Gliese 667c system. Initial analysis suggests the facility is approximately 200 years old and was built by an unknown species with technology far in advance of anything in our current database. More concerning is the evidence we have found of a conflict. The installation shows signs of orbital bombardment, ground combat, and systematic destruction. Whatever species built this base was completely wiped out by an unknown enemy. We have also detected similar ruins on 3 other worlds in nearby systems. All show the same pattern of advanced technology followed by total destruction. Admiral, we may not be alone out here, and whatever destroyed these civilizations might still be active. Hyun-woo read the report twice, his mind already moving to tactical considerations. Humanity had spent so much energy dealing with the Empire that they had not considered what might lie beyond Imperial space. The galaxy was vast, and there was no guarantee that the Empire had been its only major power. "Have you shared this with the Council?" he asked. "Not yet. We wanted your assessment first." "My assessment is that we need to know more before we cause a panic, but we also need to be prepared for the possibility that our problems with aggressive alien species are not over." He returned the datapad to Jinnah. "Double our exploration efforts in that sector. I want detailed surveys of every system within 50 light years of those ruins. And Jinnah, make sure our fleet commanders know to expect the unexpected." That evening, Hyun-woo stood in his private office aboard the Righteous Fury, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so peaceful. The human victory over the Empire had brought order to their local region of the galaxy, but the universe was far larger than their small corner of it. On his desk lay reports from human colonies throughout their growing territory. Worlds like New Seoul, where Korean families were building farming communities on planets that had never known human footsteps. Industrial centers like Port Busan, where human engineers worked alongside alien partners to develop technologies that benefited everyone. The human diaspora, that had begun with conquest and oppression, was continuing with voluntary expansion and mutual cooperation. It was everything his species had dreamed of during their years of hidden preparation. But beyond their borders, unknown threats might be stirring. His communication system chimed with an incoming message from Earth. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to Fleet Admiral Hai Suk-yoon, the elderly woman who had revealed herself as one of humanity's greatest military leaders during the revolution. "Hyun-woo," she said, using his first name as she had earned the right to do. "I have been reviewing the Outer Rim reports. What do you think we are dealing with?" "I think we are dealing with the reason the Empire never expanded beyond certain boundaries," he replied. "They knew something was out there, and they were smart enough not to provoke it. And now we are expanding into territory they avoided." "Yes." Admiral Yoon was quiet for a moment. "The Council needs to know. All of them. If there is a threat beyond our borders, we face it together or we fall separately." "Agreed. I will call an emergency session." "Good, and Hyun-woo, start thinking about what we learned from our war with the Empire. Our enemies underestimated us because they thought they knew what humans were capable of. We must not make the same mistake with whatever is out there." The transmission ended, leaving Hyun-woo alone with his thoughts and the weight of command. 2 years ago, he had been a cadet who thought his greatest challenge was surviving alien bullies at a military academy. Now he was responsible for the safety and future of dozens of species across hundreds of worlds. But as he looked out at the stars, he felt no fear. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. They had turned apparent weakness into ultimate strength, transformed persecution into liberation, and built lasting peace from the ashes of galactic war. Whatever was waiting in the darkness beyond their borders would learn the same lesson. The Empire had learned too late. Humans were at their most dangerous when they appeared most vulnerable, and they were never more united than when facing a common threat. The Wolverine had claimed its territory, but the forest was much larger than anyone had imagined. Soon it would be time to explore deeper into the unknown, carrying the lessons learned from 40 years of patience and 2 years of victory. But that would be tomorrow's challenge. Tonight, Hyun-woo Kim, Admiral of the Human Defense Force and Protector of Galactic Peace, simply stood at his window and watched the stars, ready for whatever the universe might bring.